Okay. So welcome back. We will start the next session, and I'm just directly going to present Law Jo, a Rohingya activist, and also a member of the European Rohingya Council, that will tell you more about the situation for the Rohingya people. A big hand for Law.
Thank you, everyone, for waiting patiently to this for this presentation. I will talk about Rohingya in the context of Myanmar, the situation in Myanmar. So, before this conference, how many of you heard of the Rohingya, please? Oh, almost everyone. Okay, thank you. Okay. As Kenneth introduced me, I am a Rohingya activist living in Amsterdam, Netherlands. I fled the country in 2010. So I was born in Mongdo, Arakan state, western part of Myanmar, and I studied there, and then also I studied in capital state, in capital Yangon. So I fled the country in 2010 to Holland. Who are the Rohingya? Actually, Rohingya are borderland people of Arakan, Burma. We call it now Myanmar. So before nation state, the Rohingya are the people of the border, actually, of that area. So when the British put the border between Bangladesh, East Pakistan, and Myanmar, so people, some of the people are in Bangladesh, some people are in Burma. So in Burma, we look like a little bit to people to Bangladesh. They are culturally and linguistically distinct ethnic group, recognized as distinct ethnic group and citizen of Myanmar by 4 successive governments after independence from British. So we were indigenous people, and we were recognized by the government after independence until 1962. Yes, he is the first president of Myanmar. So this is what he said: "If Muslims from Arakan are not a Burmese ethnic group, then I am also not an ethnic person of Burma." And he is the second prime minister of Myanmar. What he said: Rohingya are race of Burma and are equal to others. And in 1961, the Burmese Broadcasting Service has declared the Rohingya language program. In Rohingyas in Burmese history, from 1936 to 2010, I will talk about three famous Rohingya in Burmese history. Do Yun, who was also called Zura Begum, one of first 2 women parliamentarian in Burmese history during 1951 election, and Sultan Ahmad, Minister of Education and Health in 1960. Wu Shuemong and Wu Aung Zaw was MPs elected in 2010 general election. And major ethnic cleansing operations. In 1965, Rohingya language program was cancelled after dictator Ne Win took the power. In 1967 and 1968, they did Nga Zinka operations and forcing a lot of Rohingya to Bangladesh. In 1978, the Dragon King Nagamin operation was launched. In 1982, citizenship law was drafted. New citizenship law was drafted. In 1991, Operation Clean Nation was launched and forcing more than 200,000 Rohingya into Bangladesh. In 1994, they stopped issuing birth certificate to Rohingya. In 2005, they adopted 2-child policy only for Rohingya. In 2012, they start new ethnic cleansing program. What is 1982 citizenship law? Is drafted by dictator Ne Win, And this law restricts nationality, freedom of movement, freedom of education, freedom of religion, freedom of marriage and healthcare, and also public services and legal assistance. That law imposed forced labor, land confiscation, arbitrary taxation, arbitrary arrest, and discrimination. Ethnic cleansing, that by the definition of the United Nations, the planned deliberate removal from a specific territory persons of a particular ethnic group by force or intimidation in order to render that area ethnically homogeneous. This is happening in Arakan state. The whole villages were burned down so that Rohingya were forced to put in IDPs. 2012 massacre. It started in June 2012, 5 days after massacre of Burmese Muslim in southern Arakan, with the pretext of a rape case of a Rakhine girl. After the rape case, they circulated propaganda materials in the whole Rakhine state so that to start anti-Rohingya pogroms. In that massacre, hundreds of people were killed, hundreds of religious infrastructures were burned, and thousands of houses were burned, and also thousands of shops and properties were looted, and thousands of Rohingya Muslims were forced into IDPs in the whole Rakhine state, and also some of the Rohingya fled the country by boat through the sea into the Bangladesh, into Thailand, into Malaysia. And many Rohingya educated activists were arrested and forced into prison. Until now, there are many Rohingyas in the prison. And thousands of children and women were starved, and restriction on movement, education, healthcare access, livelihood were imposed. And almost all religious institutions were closed, and mosques were closed, and widespread rape of Rohingya girls by military and police forces, and further restriction on health, food, and water access. These are some big violence. This is called Dushiradan violence. It happened in 2014, January 28, with the pretext of police officers' death. More than 60 homes were burned down, 30 people were killed, and 40 women were raped. Tortures and mass arbitrary arrest, and carried out by Rakhine extremists in cooperation with governmental forces, and there were no media access. And this is called Longdong fire. More than 70 houses were burned down, and many innocent Rohingya were arrested and tortured. And then many houses were burned down. 5 Rohingya women brutally tortured, and their private parts burnt with candles. International NGO attacks. It happened in 2014, March 26, in Sitre, where the office of the NGOs were attacked, so that they cannot provide humanitarian aid to the Rohingya people in the IDPs and also in other areas. And the IDPs in a Rohingya community in Rakhine state. This is the Rakhine state. There are altogether 68 IDPs, and in total 143,514 people are now forced to live in IDPs. And those IDPs are in Chaukpyu, Chaukto, Mongdo, Mimbia, Mraku, Miebon, Pakto, Ramri, Ratedong, Sitre. These are the cities, and these are the IDPs in those cities. Current situations in IDPs and the Rohingya community: there are a shortage of food and drinking water, and NGOs are not given free access to provide healthcare or humanitarian aid to the Rohingya community. There are a lot of children, malnutrition, infectious diseases widespread in the IDPs, such as hepatitis, and there are lack of shelter. In the rainy season, you don't have shelter to live, and increased incidence of death of pregnant women and babies during delivery, because Rohingya are not allowed to go to the hospital. And restriction on livelihood are imposed on the Rohingya, restrictions on movement and arrest, torture. These are the daily life of the Rohingya people. These two babies are just 2 weeks ago sent from the IDP camps. These two babies were severely malnourished, and they have the problems of hydrocephalus, a lot of fluid in the brain. So they needed emergency hospitalization. Just because of the Rohingya, they are not allowed to go to hospital. Disenfranchisement. Rohingya were allowed to vote during the Burmese history until 2010. And from 2010, so there are 3 MPs in the parliament. But now what happened, the only and last ID were declared invalid, and voting right for Rohingya were stripped, and Rohingya candidates are denied to stand as a candidate for the parliament. Who are they involved? Every aspect of the community in Burma were involved against the Rohingya. Political, military, police forces, religious community, extremists, Arakan extremists, general public. All of them restricts on NGO, journalists, aid deliveries and to the Rohingya people. Enough aids do not reach the Rohingya community. Most of the foreign aids end at the hand of the government or Arakan ethnic groups or extremist monks or Myanmar rescue foundations. These are the important people involved against the Rohingya ethnic cleansing. He is the dictator, General Ne Win, who took power in 1962. He is the historian who drafted the 1982 citizenship law, who belonged to Arakan ethnic community. He is also presently a Arakan historian who published a lot of books targeting Rohingya community, and he is the General Tanshe, and he is the leader of Arakan Nationalist Party, who is one of the main actor of the ethnic cleansing against the Rohingya. He is the monk Wiratu, the face of the Buddhist Roy, is the president of the Tenzing. The rise of the racism. Racism is widespread now in Burma, and it is institutionalized. Emergence of Mabata nationwide. Mabata is also called 969 group. The emergence of Mabata is in 2008. There was a saffron revolution. The monks came out to the street to protest the military government.